Today I'm going to be talking about the Global South's battle with climate change and lack of biodiversity. It is estimated that up to 50% of species will lose a majority of their suitable climate conditions by the year 2100. The loss of biodiversity and continuous increasing levels of climate change can result in significant impacts towards human health if the ecosystem is no longer sufficient to meet a society's needs. What are the causes and effects of biodiversity and climate change on society and the environment? The environmentally harmful human activities in the global south increases the loss of biodiversity and aids in increasing levels of climate change. This results in numerous negative environmental and socio-economic effects that are commonly overlooked by first world countries. Direct exploitation and deforestation are the main causes of loss of biodiversity in the tropical rainforest. But what exactly is biodiversity? Biodiversity is the biological variety and variability of all living organisms on Earth. In fact, warm climate and high primary productivity is what creates greater biodiversity. This is why the levels are always higher near the equator, and also why biodiversity is not equally distributed among Earth. The rainforest constitutes about 90% of Earth's species, yet covers less than 10% of Earth's surface. This is why the amount of biodiversity in the tropical rainforest is so high. They have warm temperatures as well as mild seasons. Human activities are the sole culprit of tropical forest biodiversity loss. Habitat destruction, such as deforestation and fragmentation, which is land conversion, causes decline in forest species abundance and diversity, according to Rebecca Morris in the article Anthropogenic Impacts on Tropical Forest Biodiversity. Due to rapid population growth across the world, overexploitation of large mammals in the rainforest is used for food in order to suffice for the increasing population. These issues hurt the few indigenous people left who call the tropical rainforest their home because their limited resources are being taken advantage of to support wealthier countries and groups. However, it's not only animals being hunted for meat, but also tropical hardwoods for timber. By mass cutting countless trees, you're not only changing the land, but also taking away the home, food, and protection of many species. Furthermore, in Africa, biodiversity levels are falling as well due to illegal hunting, population growth, agricultural practices, and rapid urbanization. Africa used to be a place of species richness and diversity. However, recently Africa has been overseeing a continuous loss in biodiversity. As a result of such increased population, rapid urbanization was bound to occur. However, it led to habitat destruction for land conversion purposes, which took shelter and food sources from various animals. In the article, Why Should Biodiversity Be Africa's Top Priority?, Alhamdou Dursuma states that African economies are largely dependent on their natural resources, some of their biggest ones being gold and silver. This is ultimately why biodiversity plays such a critical role in human development and people's well-being in Africa. By their land providing sufficient food sources, a stable water supply, and plenty of natural resources, socio-economic development is established. Dursuma estimates that 20 to 30% decline of lake productivity, as well as decline of wildlife and fisheries, will greatly affect the African economy. Since the African economy is so largely dependent on their natural resources, decline in lake productivity and water would be especially harmful, considering such rapid population growth. As another result of population growth, declines of wildlife and fisheries would especially be harmful, considering not only do they constitute as their main food source, but also as items to trade or sell. Lack of biodiversity in Africa has many effects on the African communities that are reducing their natural resources. Consequently, climate change is also affecting Africa and is one of the main threats to Africa's ecosystem and community. Climate change is contributing to the decrease of some amphibian populations. This has the potential to disrupt ecosystems. Disruptions in ecosystems can alter food chains and create imbalances between prey and predator populations. This has the possibility to disrupt the African community's food and water sources as well. Urgent action has been called for by the World Meteorological Organization regarding climate change. In the article, Climate Change in Africa Threatens Food Security, Health, and Socioeconomic Development by Lisa Schlein, elaborates on urgent action to mitigate the impact of climate change in Africa. The recent increase in climate change levels will severely impact African communities with new issues such as diseases in new regions. In fact, due to rising temperatures and altering rainfall patterns, several malaria epidemics occurred in regions where mosquitoes previously were not able to survive. According to the climate coordinator Omar Badour, the GDP, 5 African subregions is expected to decrease by 2.25% to 12.2%. This is all just as a result of the increase in global temperature. Continuing on, China's loss of biodiversity can be linked to economic growth, but the environmental consequences are often overlooked because of economical gain. As a consequence, in China, many rare plants with important economic values in tropical China are in danger of extinction, according to Hong Hu Meng in the article Conflict Between Biodiversity and Economic Growth. This is ultimately because of China's large GDP, and they have the highest growth rate of 3 times the world average. To support their big and fast-growing economy, there are many mass production factories and machines that release harmful chemicals. The trash sold to China from the US being burned is another culprit of the plummet in air quality. Meanwhile, the mass production of industrial and agricultural goods is what pollutes the water and land as well. China's loss of biodiversity can be directly linked to economic growth, but the environmental consequences are often overlooked because of economical gain. The past decades have exhibited major biodiversity loss that is continuing as economic growth accelerates. To add on, the subject of climate change and loss of biodiversity in the global south are not adequately talked about. Many people in the global north, such as in the United States, are unaware of where products are manufactured, how they are manufactured, as well as how they are transported. In the global south, many products that are exported are made for low cost, for low pay, leading to poor quality and conditions of workplaces and products. For example, many of the products we import from China are made in sweatshops, where workers are paid below minimum wage and work in bad conditions. The mass amounts of factories in China manufacturing goods release harmful chemicals such as carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which contributes slightly more than 50% greenhouse gases. This is why many people don't know about the environmental and socio-economic effects on the global south, simply because they can't see them or deal with the effects themselves. However, the UN Environment and the United Nations Development Program is working to support some of the least developed countries in developing a plan to combat these current environmental issues. In Asia, the supported countries include Bangladesh, Cambodia, and Nepal, and they are all working to promote clean energy to help combat and raise awareness about climate change. In conclusion, 2 of some of the biggest environmental issues right now, climate change and lack of biodiversity, are affecting several parts of the world in the global south. Climate change and lack of biodiversity are very important problems, especially in the global south, that need our attention immediately. In the tropical rainforests, China, as well as Africa, all undergo the environmental and socio-economic effects of globalization and climate change. These issues have changed the air quality, water level, species, and more characteristics of these regions. The continuation of climate change and reduction of biodiversity will change our Earth, leaving us with altered ecosystems that withhold less variety and natural resources for generations to come.